Bueno, and welcome back to Quality Check. On today's episode, we're going to talk about X-Men Apocalypse. You probably already knew that before you clicked on this, didn't you? I'm sure. So, X-Men. Boy, this has been kind of a tumultuous film series. I'll probably give it some more lip service in the future. Suffice it to say, I've got some strong opinions regarding the X-Men films. Being that, as I've said over on the Geek Podcast with my buddy Felix, we both have very strong ties to X-Men, and we have very clear opinions in regards to them and how we think they're being handled. So, X-Men Apocalypse. Well, to put it lightly, it's not as bad as I dreaded it might be. Like, honestly, from the outset, it looked like it was going to be a bit of a clusterfuck. And it wasn't so bad. Like, I think it was, in a lot of ways, it was a little bit better than Days of Future Past as far as, let's just throw in a bunch of characters who you kind of know, but you don't get to know. But like Days of Future Past, it suffered that same problem. Here's some characters that are supposed to be important, but you don't really feel that because they don't get any kind of focus. Some people have blamed this on the fact that Wolverine was squeezed into the movie for a cameo. And honestly, no. I mean, yeah, I get it. People don't like so much Wolverine, Felix being one of them. But at the same time, it didn't feel like Wolverine was taking over anything when he was in the movie. His cameo was short, and it made sense within the timeline that was there, so it's not like they threw him in somewhere where he didn't belong. They were in Weapon X. So, of course, he was there. It made logical sense. Now, the fact that they didn't give some characters any character. Like, they look cool and all, but beyond that, they've got almost nothing. I blame this on the writing and the directing, honestly. I put a lot of this on Bryan Singer because he clearly could have worked harder to make that a better thing. I do think that the core X-Men were handled very well in the movie. Cyclops was very, very nice. I liked the way they handled him. Wasn't crazy about the whole, still got a member of Matthew Vaughn's First Class X-Men in here. And, a lot of people liked that movie. But, it's not Bryan Singer, so let's just erase one more of the players from that. Yeah, I kind of felt, that's how it kind of felt like, because a certain character got killed off, and I thought that was really stupid. It felt cheap, and after it happened, it felt like it didn't have any weight, because it felt like they just kind of forgot about it. Oh no, we don't have time to deal with emotions. I'm sorry, I mean, reading X-Men over the years, they've always got time for mental breakdowns and moments. That's kind of what defines them. They're very emotional superheroes. So to have them just kind of glaze over the fact that Havoc gets offed the way he does. Yeah, it feels kind of cheap. But you have interesting looking characters who you want to know more about, like Jubilee and Psylocke and Angel, who they really just should have called Archangel, because he's not even the same Angel that was in X3. He's a completely separate character that they pulled out of the ether. He's just... Oh, he's a guy with wings, but his wings have got like a little talon on them, so he's a little different. Also, he likes metal music, and he likes to fight. That's not Warren Worthington. I mean... No. Also, you pretty much... These timeline things, because basically Days of Future Past is like, oh, we're going to reboot it all. But not really. It's very confusing. I actually watched the movie again to refresh myself before watching this movie. And I've got hiccups. And, I get what they were doing with Days of Future Past, because they don't want to be beholden to the other X-Men movies. Because, well, let's face it, before First Class, the X-Men movies kinda sucked. I'm sorry if you're a big fan of any of them, but they did. They really did. And in my opinion, First Class was the first one that actually felt like, oh, hey, they're not afraid to make it a comic book movie. And then Days of Future Past started feeling like they were going back to the first three again with some of its tropes. And I'm just like, why did they bring Bryan Singer back? I don't understand. Look, I don't get this. I really don't. It feels like Fox in general, outside of the Deadpool film, it feels like Fox is afraid to make a legit superhero film. They seem like they're scared. They are afraid to make a film that has colors. You know, colorful costumes. They're afraid to make films that have messages of hope or happiness. They've all got to be bleak and full of death and despair. And yeah, superhero stories can have things like death and despair and a little bit of bleakness to them. But there's also hope. And you know, people shout on Man of Steel so hard and act like it has no message of hope to it. And that's not true at all. That film actually has quite a bit of hope to it. And it's kind of mind-boggling, because some of the same people that hated on that film will turn around and defend a film like the original X-Men film, which goes out of its way to mock both fans of the comics and the comics themselves. And I really don't understand how that's okay with some people, but the other isn't. I just don't get it. I really don't. It's very confusing. But speaking of this movie, as I said, the main problems are the fact that you have characters like Psylocke and Angel, Archangel, whatever you want to call them, and Jubilee, who are important characters who many X-Men fans love, even though Archangel, like I said, is clearly a completely different character than the Archangel in the comics. So, I guess he's like Bryan Singer's fanfic version? I don't know. But they all seem like interesting characters to look at, but they have no personality to them, really. Like, they got a body language to them, Like, Psylocke seems like a badass. Angel, and what little bit you get to see of him before Apocalypse gets him, is clearly a tough guy who likes metal. That's his characterization. That's it. That's it for characterization. He goes from that to being, oh, hey, I'm with Apocalypse now. And then Jubilee, well, she's basically Jubilee, dressed like Jubilee anyways. I don't know, like, the only character bit you get with Jubilee is if you watch that little film they put online. That's not a part of the movie, that's just online. Honestly, that was probably better than the movie. Actually, that was better than the movie. There's no probably. It was definitely better than the movie. But, if I were to grade this film compared to any of the other X-Men films, I'd put this on par with probably the first two. I mean, it's alright. Like I said, the people who actually got to be characters were done alright. Quicksilver was less annoying this time. He was like given some actual character development beyond just being a cocky, funny guy, which I still feel like is a bad characterization of him completely, because that's not who Quicksilver is. Quicksilver's kind of an asshole, a cocky asshole, and Evan Peters doesn't come off as a cocky asshole. He just comes off as, hey, I'm young and I like to be fast and stuff, and I'm smarmy. Whoa. And I'm just not feeling it for Quicksilver, man. I mean, you're alright. It's cool. I'm glad you got the role, but Quicksilver's a dick. And you're not being a dick. So, I mean, you're alright. Like, I don't dislike your character. It's just not Quicksilver. I'm sorry. And once again, this is kind of a continuation of the Professor X Magneto bromance, which is a staple of the X-Men series for the most part. It got focused on a lot more in First Class, obviously. Days of Future Past gave it some lip service. Not as much as it could have. This one brought more tragedy into Magneto's life because he lost another family. But, I don't know. I mean, he got over it pretty quickly by the end of the film. I mean, yeah, I get it. He worked past his issues, but at the same time, at the end of the film, he's just acting like, oh, hey, I was just like I am in the last two movies, and kind of cocky and arrogant, but I don't seem all that emotionally distraught anymore. I mean, he lost his wife and daughter. Dude should be a little more depressed. I mean, I don't want to encourage him to be depressed, but I felt like he came off too flippant in the end, like too nonchalant. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I wasn't feeling it. I wanted some more emotion from him, and he just came off as like, I'm a cool guy. I ain't got time to be sad anymore, man. I gotta go out in the world. You dig? You dig? Alright. Alright. So, if you like Days of Future Past, hell, if you like the first two movies, go give us a watch. You'll probably like it. If you're a big fan of First Class, it's not as good. It definitely doesn't, like, it doesn't equal out to that one. Personally,
that movie is the standard so far as X-Men films. Like, there's not been a better one than it. And no, I'm not counting Deadpool, because Deadpool is his own character. He stands apart from the X-Men. I resent the fact that people consider his movie to be an X-Men movie. It's not. X-Men is X-Men is its own separate entity from Deadpool. They exist apart from one another. Hell, at this point, Wolverine is his own separate entity. Like, you know, fuck. I'm knocking shit over. My big fucking feet. Alright, so, yeah. I'm not a huge fan of it. Like I said, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, because I wasn't really feeling it from the last movie, and just knowing Bryan Singer's X-Men films to this point, I didn't have high hopes, but it was alright. I don't regret paying the $5 it took to watch it, but you know, honestly, at the end of the day, it was kind of like the first 3 X-Men movies. It felt, honestly, a little bit forgettable. Almost generic in a way, pretty by the numbers. Oh, and Storm didn't get a lot of personality either, but I'm hoping that'll be remedied as the series goes on, because she didn't get a lot of time to really develop a personality in the film, but I'm sure she will as time goes on. It is kind of sad that of the central cast, they did manage to give some of them clear-cut personalities. Cyclops, Jean Grey, Nightcrawler, they got defined personalities. You got to see focused on them. It was all good. But Storm, she just kind of fell to the wayside. But she was with Apocalypse most of the movie, and then she switched sides at the end, so that's the way it goes. One thing I will say I kind of like about this new direction with the X-Men films is the push to make Mystique one of the X-Men. I always actually liked Mystique as a good guy. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's because I grew up on the 90s X-Men cartoon, and she makes me think of Morph. Oh, Morph, I miss you. Some people hate Morph. I never hated Morph. I like Morph. I mean, come on. Who doesn't like a wisecracking asshole, huh? It keeps me going. Hey, it's on, make a living. Anyways, yeah, that's really all I got to say about it. I'll be back soon with another one of these, where I will be talking about a movie that was, well, yeah, we'll get to it, but it makes this movie look much better by comparison, I'll tell you that. Yeah, one of those. Later days, bleeders. Bye.